You're listening to the Unstoppable Teen Podcast, episode number 0. Welcome to Unstoppable Teen, the podcast for teenagers, parents, and teachers. My name is Kevin Mincher. Every week, we will bring you an inspirational person or message to help you experience more success and happiness. Thanks for hanging out with us. Let's get this party started. Kevin Mincher here, and you can probably tell I am super psyched and excited because it's finally here, the Unstoppable Teen Podcast. You probably don't know this, but it's a couple of years ago that I first started thinking about creating this for teenagers, their parents and their teachers. Indeed, I was a teenager myself when I first started listening to audiobooks. That's where I got many of my ideas, hopes and my inspirations for the future. And of course, the modern day audiobook is a podcast. It's a couple of years ago that I got hooked on listening to podcasts, and indeed, barely a day goes by without me listening to one. So it was around about 1 year ago that I started having conversations with producers and having conversations about, well, if we did create the Unstoppable Teen Podcast, what would we put in it? What would it consist of? How long would it be? What topics would we cover? And so that's what this introductory session is all about. I want to give you the inside scoop. I want to let you know all about Unstoppable Teen and what you can come to expect from this podcast. It all started way back when I was just 13 years of age. Now you might be thinking, how on earth did this podcast start way back then? Let me explain. I was 13 years of age when my parents separated and my world descended into chaos. It was quite possibly the worst year of my life so far. Everything that I thought I knew, everything that I'd come to trust, seemed to not be reliable. My home felt like it was a World War III zone. I'd rather stay out all day than go back there. The people that I loved the most were angry with each other and seemingly fighting all the time. There was raised voices, there were slamming doors, and out of that chaos, eventually, when all the anger subsided, something important happened. My mum and dad did something that I've discovered was quite rare. They started to accept responsibility for their own lives and started to self-reflect, and they said, well, maybe we've both done something to contribute to this situation, and maybe we're both lacking in skills some way, and maybe we should see if we could improve that so we don't repeat the same mistakes in the future. And they both got into self-help and personal development. I'd come home to my mum's house, that's where I lived throughout my teenage years with my mum and my sister, and I'd find my mum reading books by people like Deepak Chopra or Louise Hay. And then when I go and visit my dad, he was reading other books, more like Tony Robbins and other people like Dan Millman and Stephen Covey. I can't remember a time back then when we'd get in a car and go on a journey and there wouldn't be some kind of self-help audiobook or inspirational speaker playing in the background. And I guess, unbeknownst to me, that information started to flow into my mind, and I started to apply it throughout my teenage years. And my grades started to skyrocket in school. I figured out ways that I could seemingly put less effort in but achieve higher grades. And then I applied it to my sports. I was passionate, and still am to this day, about football. And like many teenage boys, I wanted to be a professional footballer. And I started applying all of this self-help and personal development stuff to my sporting performance. And my performance on the pitch, out on the field, that skyrocketed too. It got to the point where in high school I achieved double the national average grades. Then 8 days after my final high school tests and exams, I started living my dream, which was to be a professional football player. It was there, when I was at Sheffield United, that I got lucky, because I was surrounded by incredible coaches and innovators. The manager at the club at that time was a guy called Dave Bassett. And Dave Bassett was out of that school of management where why say one word when 1,000 will do? You know, the man had verbal diarrhea, but he was a genius. And the reason he was a genius is because he got great performance out of people with little or no talent. You see, Sheffield United, I don't know if you know the support of soccer as it's called around the world. By the way, why do some countries call it soccer when it's clearly football? You use your feet. Why do Americans call their football when only one player uses his feet and the rest of them are using their hands and just headbutting each other? I don't get it. I'm teasing. If anybody could send me a message via social media and help me understand why the Americans call their sport football when only one person uses their feet, I'd appreciate it, because I'm confused. Anyway, back to the plot. There I was under the management of Dave Bassett, and the club wasn't like a New York Yankees or a Dallas Cowboys or a Manchester United that was a rich club. You know, we had very few resources, and so Dave couldn't afford to buy brilliant players, so he got average to poor players like me. And he had to figure out how to get those average to poor players, how to perform at their best and to grow and develop. And he was an innovator. He had more promotions from one league to another league than any other manager in the history of football here in Britain, apart from two other managers. One was called Graham Taylor and another one was Neil Warnock. A little factoid for you. All three of those managers, including Dave Bassett, had 7 promotions from one division to another division. And what Dave did to get the most out of us was he would be forward thinking. So he hired the first ever full-time sports psychologist. They're commonplace in sport now, but back then it was new. We had video analysis, we had sports scientists, we had sports nutritionists. The things that are commonplace in sport today, we were kind of the first generation to get all of that help. And all of these experts, these coaches at Sheffield United started teaching me things that I thought I should have learned in school. You see, I remember when I was in school complaining all the time. A lot of teenagers do that, I know. Maybe that's our role in life. But I remember going into classes and saying, why are you teaching me this? I'm never going to use it. I remember in math lessons having to do things like trigonometry and quadratic equations and Pythagoras' theorem. I'm like, I'm never going to use this. Why are you teaching it to me? And I remember we had to study foreign languages and I had to take French. I was like, why are you making me do French lessons? I'm never going to go to France. And yet there were all these other life skills that I was going to need for every day of my life that weren't covered in the national curriculum. Things like, I never had one single lesson on how to boost my own self-confidence and self-belief. I didn't have one lesson on verbal communication skills, time management. I didn't have any of that stuff. How to perform at your best under pressure. And yet, these are the kinds of skills that most of us are going to need every day of our lives, and they weren't covered by the national curriculum here when I was going through high school. Thankfully, I got that help at home, and I got it when I was at Sheffield United. Unfortunately for me, in my first 2 years at Sheffield United, I had a back injury and my career was over before it ever really began. And so I started to think, well, what can I do with all these brilliant insights and strategies that I've learned in sport that I thought I should have learned in school? What am I going to do with all this stuff? So I went backpacking around the world. I thought, I don't know what I want to do in my life. I knew I wanted to play professional football. That was my dream. Now I can't do it. What am I going to do instead? And so off I went. I went to America. I went to Hawaii. What a beautiful place. At some point in your life, you've got to go there. I went to New Zealand. I went to Australia. I visited Singapore. And after 6 months backpacking around the world, at the age of 19, I returned back to Britain. By the way, I've now visited more than 40 countries here on planet Earth. And I strongly recommend to young people, when you can, go off and see the world. You see, I was born and raised in a tough town in the north of England, a coal mining town. And when I was coming out of high school, we had high levels of unemployment. If you've ever watched a movie called The Full Monty, in fact, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. It was filmed in South Yorkshire, in the city of Sheffield. And the steelworks were starting to shut down, the coal mines had already shut down, and there were high levels of unemployment. Apparently, where I was from, there was 80% unemployment. And because there were so many people that were unemployed, people didn't have very much money. And because they didn't have very much money, people often turn to crime. According to government statistics, where I was from, crime rates were in the worst 5% of the whole of the country. And because people didn't have very much money, they'd often stay at home because they didn't have a disposable income to go out and pay for going and doing fun things and great activities and hobbies and have passionate interests. And so many people would turn to drugs to take away their hurt and desperation. Not a smart move. Unfortunately, it was a common move. And according to government statistics, those drug abuse was in the worst 5% of the whole of the country. So it was a depressed area. And I went off backpacking around the world, and what that did for me was it widened my horizons. While I was away, I went to some places that were horrific. There really aren't any other words for it. It was tragic what I was seeing. I mean, I thought I had it tough in my hometown of Doncaster in England, and I didn't have a clue how privileged I was. I used to moan and complain about the state of things, when in actual fact, we were probably in the top wealthiest 1% of the whole of the world. And when you travel around the planet and you see the deprivation that happens in other places and the poverty that other people live in, I came to realise I was privileged, and I got really grateful for the fact that I was lucky enough to have been born in this country of Great Britain, where the word great goes before the word Britain for a very important reason. I also, as I travelled around the world, met lots of people who were doing better than me. I don't mean they were smarter than me, they were just like me. They were no more intelligent. I'd get into conversations with them and I realised this person's no smarter than me, but they were doing better than me. They were living in a nicer house. Their family had, nicer holidays than my family. When I was a kid growing up, we went to a caravan near Skegness. One year we went camping in Wales where it rained for the whole time we were there. I tried to say to my parents, this is not a holiday, this is a punishment. They weren't having it. And off I went. I was travelling around the world, and I started to realise that there were people that were no smarter than me, that were living better than me, and that raised my aspirations. It made me hungry. It made me want to make my life better. So when I was 19, I returned back to England after backpacking my way around the world, and I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur and start my own business. And that business became what is now known today as Unstoppable Teen. And I really set off on a mission. And that mission was to help 1 million young people experience a better quality of life. I wanted to share all those insights that I got from professional sport about how you can take a bad performance and turn it into a good performance, how you can take low self-confidence and turn it into strong self-confidence, how you can improve your own life. I wanted to pass those strategies and techniques onto other young people. And that started by me going into schools and presenting big motivational seminars to teenagers all over the country. And since then, around about 300,000 young people have gone through those seminars. And whether that's my No Limits seminar, the Get the Grades You Want seminar, my Inner Winner seminar, there's a whole series of events that I deliver in schools around the country. And after a while, I got tired. There was one particular year where I presented 103 seminars in one school year. It was insane. I travelled like 40,000 miles. I was driving the car myself. I got to the summer vacation and I was exhausted. And I thought, I can't carry on like this. Something needs to change. But what is it going to be? I had one of those sliding doors moments. Have you ever watched the movie with Gwyneth Paltrow in it? It's a little bit old now, but it's a great film. And it's on this idea that there's a woman, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, who is running for a train. And in one scene, she gets on the train. And then it cuts to another scene where she's running for the train. And as she approaches it, the doors close and the train pulls away and she misses the train. And it's called sliding doors. And in that sliding doors moment, Gwyneth Paltrow, her character in the movie, her life changes. And from that point on, there are two stories. The version of her life when she got on the train and the version of her life when she didn't get on the train. And we all have these sliding doors moments in our lives. And I had one of those because I got offered a job to become a coach at Leeds United Football Club. At that time, Leeds were flying high in the Premier League. They were qualified for the Champions League, and I was asked if I wanted to go and be a coach in their academy and help their young players develop. At the same time and on the same day, a good mate of mine called Rich got offered the same job. There were two coaching positions. We both got offered a position. And in that sliding doors moment, Rich accepted the job and I rejected it to stay focused on Unstoppable Teen. Rich went on to move to Leicester City, to Manchester United. He ended up winning the Premier League and the Champions League, and he now works for the English Football Association. He's had a fantastic career as a coach in professional sport. I continued with my mission in schools, but I knew I needed to change something. I wanted to carry on presenting my motivational seminars, but I realised that today's youth generation loves media. So I started filming videos. I went into the studio and recorded an audiobook, and I started publishing things when iTunes and Amazon and Audible and all those things were coming out. And over the years, I've attempted to be innovative. You see, I believe that if you're going to help somebody, you have to communicate with them through their preferred means. And when it comes to young people, invariably what that means is in the modern world, while seminars are great, you need to communicate through social media, through apps, through the internet. And indeed, that brings us to this podcast. You see, here's my promise to you. Every week, I'm going to record an audio program, a podcast episode, that will contain interviews with super successful people. I'm going to use some of my contacts in professional football and interview those pro soccer players to find out how they got to where they are today. Where did they start out when they were younger? And what are their habits? How do they think? What are their routines that enabled them to become successful? I'm going to interview millionaire entrepreneurs to ask them the same questions. What obstacles have they had to overcome? What were they like when they were a teenager? And how have they gotten to where they are today? I'm going to interview best-selling authors on all kinds of different topics, from fiction to nutrition. I'm also going to do some episodes where I don't interview anybody, but I'm going to answer your questions. When I present my seminars in schools and when I consult with schools to embed these lessons into their curriculum, where I train teachers how to embed stuff into tutor time and into their daily lessons, I inevitably get asked lots of questions. And teenagers will stop me in a corridor and say, "Hey Kev, I've got these important finals, tests and exams coming up, but I'm really stressing out and I can't get to sleep at night. Can you give me some advice?" Or they say to me, I want to do this one thing for my career, but my mum and dad want me to do something else. What should I do? And so there will be episodes in this series where you can send me your questions via social media. You can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the usual social media channels, and you'll find us at Unstoppable Teen. And you can send us your questions and we'll answer them through the podcast. There'll also be episodes where we share statistics, facts. There's research going on all the time about discoveries with the teenage brain, latest employment trends that are affecting young people. We're going to use stats and facts and research wherever we can to give you, ultimately, through these episodes, strategies. Or in other words, practical, helpful tips and advice, things you can go away and do to make your life better. You see, when I travel around schools, it seems like everybody's gotten serious all of a sudden. It's like standards are being raised, and in some places, young people have forgotten how to have fun. It's all about getting the grades and preparing for future careers, and that's important. But there are other things that are important too. While you've got your youth, it's important to have a good time. And many of us have gotten caught up in consumerism and materialistic stuff where we think we've got to have the latest gadgets in order to be happy. And so many of us have got attached, and I'm one of them, to our smartphones, when in actual fact it's human connection and being with the people that we care about the most and doing fun things together that really matters. So that's a lot, isn't it? Each episode is going to have its own little theme, and I'm really looking forward to sharing these people and these insights with you. Talking of stats and facts that would have an impact on teenagers and your life, here's one for you. In fact, no, let me ask you a question. Massive research studies are being done all over the world about happiness. Isn't that what life's really all about? Having a good time and enjoying yourself? So, my question is, what percentage of adults say they are happy with their lives? Now, there are research studies being done all over the world on this very question. And there's the longest study on happiness, apparently has been conducted in Michigan in the United States. It's been going on for more than 50 years. And what they found is that it doesn't matter what time of history you are in, roughly the same percentage of the adult population are happy with their lives. It doesn't matter whether we are in a booming economy where there's high employment and lots of people are making lots of money, or whether we're in a recession and there's a shortage of jobs and not enough money to go around. It doesn't matter whether you live in a hot place or a cold place. It doesn't matter whether you're young or old. It doesn't matter whether you're a male or female. Roughly, on average, according to this study in Michigan, around about 17% of adults say they are happy with their lives. What? 17%? 17? That's insane. How can it be that when we live, and I don't know where around the world you're listening to this, I'm in the United Kingdom, the study was done in the United States, I don't know where you are, but many of us live in countries that have a democracy where we have freedom, where we can go where we want to go and do whatever we want to do, and yet so many people are messing up their own lives. How can that be that 17% of adults are happy with their lives? You see, I don't want that to happen to our current youth generation. I want to help teenagers lead happy and successful lives. Our mission here at Unstoppable Teen is to help as many young people as possible experience what we call the ultimate youth lifestyle. And the ultimate youth lifestyle is about having fun and being successful. We have this little 3-part phrase where we call it believe, achieve, enjoy. That's the ultimate youth lifestyle, where you believe in yourself, where you achieve the things that you want, and where you enjoy the process. So through this podcast, it's my promise to you that will help you develop that self-belief, will help you discover your strengths, your talents, and create a great future for yourself that you can then go out and achieve, will help you be successful. And that's, yes, including getting better grades in school, but it's in other areas of your life, like whether it's for me in sport and business, or the other things that you care about. The final bit about enjoying it, that's the art of life, that's living. I'm fed up of meeting young people who are successful in school, they got top grades, but they're stressed and they hate their lives. No, success without happiness, that's really failure. And so through these podcasts, we're going to show you and encourage you to have fun in the process of that journey towards more achievement and believing in yourself. Folks, I'm chuffed that you joined us here, and I hope that you'll return for future episodes. If you liked what you listened to in this introductory episode, please share it with your friends via social media, and by all means subscribe. Make sure that on that little podcast app you subscribe, and then all future episodes will come through to you automatically without you having to think about it. And whether it's when you're on the bus to school in the morning, whether it's in your commute to work, or it's just hanging out at home, do you know what I do? I listen in the shower in the morning to my podcast. I don't mean I listen to my own podcast, that'd be weird. No, I listen to other people's podcasts. So wherever and whenever you want to listen to it, go for it, share it with others, and we'll see you soon. In the next episode, I'm going to share with you the 5 things that teenagers need to be great at if you want to have a great life. So stay tuned, and between now and then, be unstoppable. Bye for now.